So if Bob Iger has clearly hinted at, we're not interested in keeping, quote, non-core elements of Disney. He has talked about selling ABC and FX networks specifically in that interview on Squawk Box. That would probably also include other linear assets on cable broadcast. Now, I want to be clear, is that Bob Iger made it clear in that interview that doesn't mean all the content goes with it. It's simply the distribution delivery system. So core content, like, for example, Iger made it plain that he has no intention of spinning off or selling ESPN because sports are core to Disney, as they should be, because they have gajillions of dollars invested in them. There's obviously a lot of sports tie-ins with ABC. There's a lot of core content tied in with ABC. So if Bob Iger strikes a deal, or already has struck a deal this weekend, at least in principle, to sell broadcast ABC, what does that look like? Because here's the thing. Number one, and this is what everybody out there is asking in the media, is that even if Bob Iger, and everybody expects him now after that interview, he's selling ABC. Who's buying it? Who is buying a dying broadcast channel, and who could buy it and then get past not only Federal Trade Commission, FTC antitrust laws, which that's a big one to get over in and of itself, but then Federal Communication Commission, FCC, which governs over-the-air broadcasts. It can't be a Paramount. It cannot be a Comcast, because that's CBS and NBC. They cannot buy another broadcast channel, period, in discussion. The FCC will tell them, go away. Middle finger, you could just go piss off. So it has to be somebody like maybe an Amazon or an Apple, but then does an Amazon or an Apple really want a linear broadcast network if, especially, they don't get the sports contracts that go along with it, which Disney seems very disinclined to acquiesce those contracts to anybody else. So Mike, Nick, Steven, your thoughts on what could happen? What is Disney going to try to sell off, and why? I just think at this point with ABC, Disney, for no other reason, forget Hulu for a minute, I think they're just trying to get whatever they can get now while it's still worth something, versus in the next 3 to 4 years where something like ABC might be worth squat.
Yeah.
Y'all's thoughts?
See, this is the thing. Bob Iger trying to sell ABC is like taking your entire comic book collection and pulling out all the junk and then trying to go to the comic book shop and saying, I want to sell you this. What will you give me for it? Nobody wants just ABC. Amazon wouldn't even want it. I don't see Apple even wanting it. Not when it doesn't come packaged with sports stuff of any kind, because so many people are disconnecting from cable. They're going to streaming services. They're going to YouTube TV or something like that, to where they can watch their shows or whatever. The old school networks, ABC, NBC, and all the shows that used to come on that people used to watch all the time, it's dying. It is dying a slow death. So when he takes ABC and tries to sell it to somebody, if he's not going to package it with something else that somebody actually wants, I don't see the interest there for anybody wanting to buy it. So if Disney's going to try to sell anything, because they got to come up with the cash, because they got to buy Hulu. He already said that they don't have the cash for that. So they got to do something to be able to make that deal and purchase that.
Well,
the
real
thing
quick,
is, they're going to
Nick,
have to sell off something big other than just ABC, in my opinion.
Well, no. Well, here's the thing. It all depends on what they get for ABC, right? And Mike, I want you to take this next, because I know you've got some great insight on this. Being, your profession as a CPA, as an auditor and numbers guru. But here's the thing. I stand by my initial supposition that Disney does not necessarily have to sell a big asset to do the Hulu acquisition, only because they have done Fox a few years ago when they were not in a radically different financial position than they are now. I mean, you look at the stock price back in 2017, 2018 versus today, it's not terribly dissimilar. But they did that Fox acquisition by, number one, leverage, and number two, the issuance of new stock. And the issuance of new stock was commensurate with the additional capital exposure, the capex, or excuse me, not the capex, but the market cap is what I meant to say. Additional market cap that they acquired buying in Fox, they issued additional shares of stock so that the value of the shares, like for example, if they're going to buy another $10 billion or $20 billion asset with the remaining share of Hulu, if they did that, theoretically, your $100 share of Disney, let's pretend it was still $100 at this point, right, would jump up a bit. What Disney did in the Fox case was they issued another, I think it was 300 million shares of Disney Class A stock to do that so that it diluted, but it didn't dilute the outstanding market cap in the sense that we have another 20 or in that case, excuse me, $70 billion worth of market cap buying in Fox, but we issued an equivalent amount of stock and leverage to cover that so everything just even keeled out. They
that
could
stock
do that
keeps dropping.
Right, but they could theoretically do that with Hulu. It would be much easier because, of course, whatever Hulu, even if it comes in at the high side of 25 billion or whatever Comcast wants, I don't think it'll wind up being that high. That's what they want. I think they'll meet in the middle. They could do that. I think that Iger is more inclined at this point. Will the ABC sale, if they sell it, help the Hulu situation? Absolutely, unequivocally, it will definitely help the balance sheet in that regard for the Hulu purchase. But I think in Disney's mind, and I think to Bob Iger's credit, it's a wise choice if he can get the right deal to dump off a broadcast station like ABC, which 10 years ago would have been unfathomable to say this. But this is a good move to get something for it while it's worth something versus 5 years from now. But Mike,
how much is it actually worth, though? Maybe Mike knows.
Well,
That's what's hard to say. It depends what goes with it, Mike.
It's hard to say, but I think there's something else in that interview. It's not in one of the clips that was released, but in one of the in that interview, he made the comment that we are assessing the various assets of the business. That my bing 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 Spidey sense, accounting sense tick went off, and that means that valuations and auditors were sent all throughout the company to come up with valuations. That means PricewaterhouseCoopers, who's been PricewaterhouseCoopers, who's been the accounting firm of record since 1931. I believe they were deployed in Burbank. They were deployed they were deployed all over the place, and there's valuations of this thing everywhere. Now, our friend Nate didn't bring this up earlier, but he released a video which I found fascinating that the Marvels is being dropped on broadcast-free TV and not on Disney Plus.
Yes,
I think that a move like that is actually a good
the TV show, folks, not the movies. Well, Ms. Marvel is.
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Marvel.
Yeah. I apologize. Ms. Marvel, not the movie's still coming out. I'm sorry. I'm talking too fast.
No, it's okay.
But the fact that they actually went and took something that would normally be deployed for Disney Plus and it's going to hit their broadcast network, I believe that is an olive branch towards the valuation of saying that whoever picks this up, you can count on us. You can count on us to release some more of our great Disney content. It's like this. If you buy my used car, Valiant, guess what? I'm going to take out the 8-track player and I'm going to put in a brand new cassette.
Yes. And Mike, that's a great point. And I've been noodling on that for a while, but you just brought it up, and it kind of put two and two together. And I think you're right.
Think about this. You look at all these look at all these stars in the sky and start drawing a line, and we're gonna get, and we see what he's trying to do. That is like what all he has to do really is basically sell off 10 to 50. He needs something that gets him to about 10 to 20 billion on the low side. I actually think the whole stock thing would be a bad idea. I know it's something they could do. I know certainly it's just because the price is low.
And they have done it. Yeah.
They've done it before, but right now the price is low. It's probably not going to go up. And I think that having that more stock out on the street will change the dynamics of who the institutional investors are potentially. And I don't know if they're ready for that on the board. I don't know.
Well, if they shed a dying asset like ABC, that would help. And Mike, what you just said, though, and I don't want to gloss over this, because I think you just brought up a very brilliant point that I had not fully considered. And that is, and welcome aboard, Jonas J. Campbell. Glad you could join us. Here's the deal. You just said something that made a light go off in my head. This is what I now think, based on what you just said, is the ABC deal is going to look like. And if I'm Bob Iger, this is exactly what I would do to sweeten the pot. If I sell ABC, but I'm going to divest things like live sports because that's the biggest thing going for ABC at this point. And Bob Iger is probably not going to let that stay with that because Disney has the contract for live sports, college football especially. They outright own across the board college football. The NCAA does not exist in a vacuum of Disney. It just doesn't. They pay the bills. And then you can add in all the other major league sports contracts. Disney wants to keep that core. That is core to Disney. That's going to stay with Disney. Disney is desperate to get that content and that programming direct to consumer, DTC on streaming with ESPN Plus, which they eventually want to convert to full-fledged ESPN. But if I'm Bob Iger, I'm going to pull that back from my ABC sale. What then can I do? What have I been talking about, Mike, for a couple of years? What has Script Doctor been talking about for a couple of years as well on YouTube? And that is that the streaming services, throw in Netflix and everybody else, eventually is going to get to the point where their dead library is going to be sold out to AVOD and SVOD streaming services or to other things. Because think about, I've always made the comparison, like take Stranger Things season 1 and 2. What is that doing for Netflix these days? Diddly poop. Netflix could license that out to a broadcast service or something and make bank on it. They would love to have that content. I think that's what Disney's going to do with ABC. Hey, you buy ABC, guess what? I tell you what we're going to do. You buy ABC, we're going to give you seasons 1 and 2 of Mando.
Wait.
We're
So are
gonna give
you saying The Mandalorian on linear TV?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
But I thought
They've
you
already
could find it on Disney
Hang
Plus.
on. They've already opened the door with Miss Marvel, as Mike correctly just brought up, that Nate talked about earlier. That's been in the news this week. They've already slated that for ABC. Why not at this point? If I'm Bob Iger, I'm like, I tell you what, we're going to give you the first seasons of all the original Disney Plus shows. We're going to license those out to you as part of this sale deal with ABC. We're going to give you all the first seasons of stuff 18 months after, like a pay one window. Think the 18-month, the traditional Hollywood 18-month pay one window. 18 months on Disney Plus, and after that, the pay two window as part of the deal goes to ABC.
and what does that do to the income statement of Disney Plus? It moves it in the other direction.
Doesn't matter.
We've
got balance sheet problems, not P&L problems. We got more balance sheet problems.
No, they said they're on the record as saying that Disney Plus is going to be profitable by September of this year, which
No. Wait. Well, September. Hang on, Jonas.
Oh, next year. Sorry,
next year, 2024, end of fiscal year by or within. I should stipulate. They never stipulated beginning or end, but within FY 2024, which FY 24 ends September 30th of next year. So they can do this, but the problem is that that's not necessarily going to enhance the balance sheet of Disney Plus by licensing this back. If they were to sell ABC this weekend to somebody else and give them this kind of deal where you will get Disney Plus content after the first 18-month pay one window or whatever they renegotiate, that's not going to help the Disney Plus thing, but it will help the Disney balance sheet as a contract in terms of licensing. Like they have that theatrical licensing and third-party distribution division, which has basically been sacked for the last 2 years because Disney has been consuming all of its own crap onto Disney Plus, and then Disney Plus is whipping out a Visa card, a $13 billion Visa card, to buy all the content back in. They can mitigate that now by throwing it back out to other licensing services if they were to sell ABC. It's an interesting prospect. I'd love to see that come to fruition. That would be the first smart move that Disney's made in a while with third-party distribution.
If these people haven't seen Mando season 3, that might work. If they've seen it, it's not going to do anything.